Hi, Sam.
Heiner, Doug.
Hello, sir.
Hey. Hey, today I'm probably not likely to stay the entire time, so I'm making you host right away, okay?
Okay.
All right. Wait a minute.
Reminding you, feed the puppies.
Okay. By the way, our session yesterday went for about 3.5 hours.
I'm reminding you, feed the puppies.
I'm reminding you, feed the puppies. I love that.
Alexa tells me what to do, okay?
Yeah, that's classic. I really.
I can provide information, music, news, weather, and more.
Stop snooping.
Sam, did you hear or did you have your ears ringing when your name was mentioned early this week?
I probably need to dig out some earwax. No.
It was this Polynesian dancer who is going to come to your session doing Talanoa and other dialogue forms from Polynesia.
Kayla's been to these sessions like 2 or 3 times already.
More
Yes.
than that. More than that.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
Kayla's been
interesting.
very consistent, given that she's new.
Yes.
So we might even see her.
In fact, she's going to lead our Saturday session 2 weeks from yesterday. So she's got the entire session to bring Talanoa dialogues and hopefully some Polynesian dancing.
Yes, we are going to do Talanoa
There
Plus.
she is.
Hello,
Kayla,
I
we
just
were
talked
talking
about you, Kyla.
Kayla, right? Is it Kayla or Kyla?
Kayla.
Kayla, but I'm not offended. So what were you saying about me, Heiner?
I need someone to do the dishes.
Hey, come on. Come on.
It's too early. For me, at least.
No, we talked about Talanoa.
Talanoa, yes! That's in a couple of weeks.
I was just
Yeah.
telling him 2 weeks from yesterday, you're going to lead a session on Talanoa dialogues on Saturday. So
That's
hopefully
right.
we'll get Heiner and Doug to show up.
Please.
Now, do
I
we
should
also get
mark
some?
it red in my calendar.
Yay!
I need to mark it in my calendar.
Okay, so that is Saturday, June 20th.
Okay,
Yes, that's right.
I
So do
book
we?
it right away.
So just real quick, I may have to leave early. I'm actually going live on Facebook, so I have to go to Long Beach. So yeah. So if
Is
you
this
see me
for the dance class?
it's this group asked me to perform for them, so sort of.
Is it going to be recorded?
Yes, it will be recorded.
And will you share it with us?
Of course, of
All
course.
right. There we go.
So we go to your website on Facebook, and then we are part of the event.
I think so. I'll I'm not good with this, so I'll let you guys know. I'll put it on Facebook.
By the way, I've watched several of those videos from those competitions in Paris now, 2016, 2017, 20, so your gal has certainly seemed to win a lot of those competitions. Miss
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so cute. She's like
I didn't recognize you in any of those videos, though. Are you in those videos?
I don't go to Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very camera shy, believe it or not. I'm not one of those people. I should, because I've got my own dance group, but I mean, I don't post myself. It's weird. I've always been like that.
You can get. We can help you get over that.
I know. I know. I should.
If you want to, Kayla.
I'll talk about it with Gertrude on Friday. Oh yeah, by the way, I haven't been able to go on Friday, Doug.
Really?
Yeah, well, not this past Friday because I had a previous engagement, but the last 2 Fridays I've been clicking the link and it just didn't work.
That's strange.
Yeah, but I can go, you know, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I think I know what it is about. I had the same problem during my event, and then again on Monday in the soft data event with Nora Bateson. Especially that weekend, Zoom was upgrading, and everybody who didn't have the room and then the password, but having the direct access link, it didn't work when the participants were not updating and running on the latest software version. So I had lots of pain. About 100 people complained and were really angry with me. So we have to create it as a film very, very soon.
Yeah, I think it should work the next time you try, Kayla. If it doesn't, IM me and I will, you know, figure out what's going on and get you a link in the moment.
Awesome, thank you.
The most important is that you go or migrate to the newest or latest Zoom version.
Yes, you have to upgrade Zoom if you haven't.
Yeah, I haven't.
Okay.
Kyla, I mentioned to you another dancer friend of mine. Her name is Mila. She's in Denver and going back to Montenegro, former Yugoslavia. And she was putting all her experience with arts and science and consulting and dancing together in a very, how do you say, emotional live Facebook sharing with her friends. It's called I Can't Breathe. It's very, very touching. And I think I put it into the chat room. You might want to know about this. It's about an alien who got lost in Denver, coming from war-torn Yugoslavia and now being in strange environments with her children in Denver.
That's great. I would love to do that.
That's what I feel like. And being a New York City Jew dropped in the middle of Southwest Michigan. And she does flower arrangements too.
I should stop my video. I feel so rude. I'm making
No, it's good to see that.
I'm making a lei. It's good. It's like a lei po'o. It goes around my head. So yes, I do that. It's graduation season too. So yesterday I was folding dollar bills and making them into little bow ties. $60 bills in bow ties. It took a long time.
Gee, I don't remember getting a dollar bill bow tie when I graduated.
Did you get a car?
No, I did not come from that. That's socioeconomic culture.
It wasn't possible for me either. No.
Yeah.
You were talking about being out of place in Michigan. I was a Taiwanese kid in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the 60s. There were no other Asians, I think, in the entire state other than our families.
That's scary.
Ties, wie geht's? Actually, how do you say it in Dutch?
Oh, hoe gaat het met je?
How about
In Dutch. Hoe gaat het met je?
I'll have to see that in detail.
Van net, hoe gaat het met jou?
Hoe
Of
gaat
met
dat
je?
met jou?
Ja, hoe gaat het met jou? I'm fine. So just second batch of spinach.
Ties, I got to tell you, it's refreshing to see you more frequently on video than when you first started. Because when you first started,
Yeah,
I didn't see
I
you at
was
all.
shy. I didn't need to, but it was of my work mainly.
He wasn't in
and,
quarantine.
and I didn't want to have my private space also in the. So I was sitting outside in the beginning, so showing.
Mhm.
In the summer, I showed something from the outside. So now showing something from the inside of my home. So, but I
Are
don't
we
want
under?
to give you around too.
Okay. Have we unblocking today?
We do. Are you
I have.
unblocked? You have
I
something
have.
to unblock?
I have since 3 months a block with TÜS. We cannot agree what certain disciplines or subject areas are about. And it's so difficult. I
No, it's
wonder if
okay.
you solved the problem now.
No, well, there is two German names for something. So there is a word for industry, which is called Wirtschaft. But they have Betriebswirten, is people that work in factories, and they have Volkswirten, so people that work in sort of factories that are populated with people. Volkswirten. So he can't explain me what's the difference between a Volkswirt and a Betriebswirt. A Betrieb I know, but
Doug,
Volkswirt
come on, Doug. You can do
I
this.
don't know.
I'm
So this
I'm
is
at I'm at a
this is
complete.
a question on German meanings, and they were used in teletext in ZDF.
It
Teletext. I'm reading.
sounds like a German problem.
No, it's a global problem. But you English-speaking people ignore it. The issue is, what is the subject area? And when TÜS says it is only in factory or in production, then maybe that's only part of the story. Betriebswirtschaft, about my economic, how I handle my project, my work, my institution, has to do with the local nitty-gritty data and processes and people. And Volkswirtschaft, Volks means the people, the states, means that all national, regional economic sectors are involved. In Betriebswirtschaft, we only have a few people running a company, but in Volkswirtschaft, it's really involving all sectors of a region or a nation. And the other term is Weltwirtschaft, that is the economy of the world. So it has to do with scales and not focused on one subject area or one way of production only.
So I want to understand the distinction between the first two. So is the second one public sector versus private sector?
Very much so. It's more
Okay.
like an academic field having to do with monetary system, social system, cultural system,
Okay.
and not your inner culture of a company. That would be the Betrieb,
Gotcha.
business.
So so to a certain extent the distinction, and I don't speak German, so unfortunately I'm completely shooting from the hip here, but the distinction in principle is that the first one, the private sector factory context, has a very narrow field of interest and focus, presumably the priority being the profitability in service to shareholders.
Right.
The second one has a massively large constituency pool that it's in service to, having to do with private interests, public interests, meta-governmental interests, cultural interests. Like it would bring in everything.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I got
But
it.
it's still on the national level.
Understood.
And only if you go internationally that you have Welt and not Volk. Volk
Right.
means the people.
Understood. Understood. So it's a progressively expanding contextual field of view and scope of inclusion, or driver or motivation or intention.
It's very much of scoping and contexting. I had this discussion last Sunday when we didn't know what system Earth is. And when Google, with Wikipedia's help, is now doing the ranking of expertise, transparency, authoritativeness, then we don't know what the expertise is. Is it a focused specialist expertise, or more broader or general, or whatever, very wide expertise? And I always say you need both. You need the specialization in the detail, in the standardization, and like the horizontal bar of harmonization, you need to look into the comparabilities and then maybe later have to translate.
So is there mimetically, is there a title for the distinction you just drew? Is there a name for the universe that encompasses that horizontal breadth and that vertical specificity through the lens you're looking at it?
Well, it is the field of norms and standards.
Okay.
UNESCO is in charge of any kind of terminology having to do with translation and precision in the definition. And
That is
the field of harmonization, which is more in bridging comparability issues in different science sets, in other ways of cultural expressions. And actually, that's my thing since 30 years, the T.
I understood. Now, does the ISO standards concept stir into this as a taxonomic dimension?
Yes, it's ISO DIN Infoterm Termnet. It is an UNESCO TC working group where they were originally in Prague, Budapest, and Berlin doing the first dictionaries with Langenscheidt, with translation. And out of this, we have this body, and I was long time a normal member. But
What are you now, an abnormal member?
in that society, I've been always abnormal.
You had to ask that question, Doug. Say, Heider, I have a question for you, though. You know, it's curious to me that in matters of diction and words and language, that there be standards that to me look like they are now, sorry, let me not presume that, but do they collect the different implications and meanings from the various different constituents and cultures and contexts? And do they retain those in some way? Or do they just pick one and say, this is what we mean, all the other ones are incorrect?
So you're asking whether they have Dictopedia or not?
In a way.
Okay.
Well, you see, that is a very important and deep question. And it came out of the German industry normung, setting the standard for a certain way to measure or how to define something by quality or material or function. You see, the Germans are very crazy in this precision, and it was always very good to do it in fun.
Yeah, but there are so many states within Germany. Has it to do with this diversity within your country that all states have to work together? So that was an internal German problem to get this done. Is this true?
Well, it is our mindset. We want to be sharp and exact and to the point, and it helped the German industry, like the British Standard Organization, to have something like a German standard made in Germany or made in Britain or made wherever. But all this is evaporating now, because if you produce like China, then you have suddenly a much bigger stake in it.
I didn't follow that. Can you state that a different way?
I think these standards are on the verge to be outdated. It was
because they're nationally rooted, as opposed to global.
It's a global market now, and you see it with how we measure. we have kilometers, you have miles. You
Yeah, but
have
we're
gallons,
yeah, but we're
we
just
have liter.
but we're just idiots. You've got to accept stupidity in the face
Well,
of.
if you don't want to make a moonshot, it's okay.
Yeah, but notice when they go to moonshot, they get out of inches and miles really, really quickly.
Oh, they have to.
I mean, I can see
if
it.
you go further to Jupiter and Mars, then it's even getting more important.
I mean, I can understand it for things like, weights and measures. Those are fairly standard things to standardize. But I was wondering about definitions about things that are more human or economic, such as well-being, health, productivity, poverty.
That's
How do you
quality,
define poverty?
not quantity.
The part of the problem with getting caught up in words, in the language, and in and of itself, as opposed to a representational symbology of a meaning, right, is that to me it seems more critical that the people involved have the same intentionality and experience as it relates to the meaning they're attempting to share, right? And that the words and languaging piece is an abstraction. It's one step removed from that.
But
It's
you
sort
have
of
to
like
use the
it's sort of
language.
like no. I understand that. I agree with that. But it's where does the focus get placed? It's the same thing with fiat currency took us to this dystopic nightmare we're in now because it became a representation not linked or tied to anything concrete. It became pure abstraction. And then because there were powers that be that figured out how to convince and con everybody else in the world that it had value, everybody is a slave to it. But the truth of the matter is that it has absolutely no meaning in mapping to true value in a commodity sense or in a concrete sense. And I'm not sure that you can't end up inadvertently going down sort of a similar rabbit hole when it comes to the different definitions for similar words or terms. The piece of the puzzle, the nexus of that question that strikes me as more interesting imperative is how do you identify in the moment of disconnect, of discontinuity, where you
Can people hear Doug?
okay,
No.
sorry.
Okay, yeah, you
No, I
went on
So
mute.
yeah, I'm not sure how that happened. So in the moment of discontinuity where you say black and I say black and we mean two different things, the real question for me is how can that be caught and surfaced in real time
Bingo.
to the parties so that they can or the means and mechanism of communication is such that they both get a signal that says, yo, I think you're talking about two different things.
Right.
And human beings are capable of doing that when they're in a group, right? If there are three of us and you're going black and meaning something and I'm going black and meaning something else and there's a third person going, I don't think the two of you are saying the same thing, right? Somebody needs to intermediate that as a human instantaneous cognitive processing ability that I don't think any machine has yet to say, wait a second, you're not making sense in relation to each other. It's sort of like me sitting across the table from a Trump supporter, right? There's just a fundamental disconnect on some intangible level. And a third person can sit there and look at us yelling across the table at each other and go, wait a second. This is not making sense. What do you mean by, what do you mean by? What's your intention in relation to that? And that seems like a more worthy sort of point of focus, and goes to Heiner's point, which is, you know, you've got somebody who's vertically locked and you have somebody who's horizontally oriented, and never the twain shall meet unless there's somebody to go, yo, you both exist in the same universe. One of you happens to be focused on one end of this curve, and the other happens to be focused on the other.
Can I take a shot at this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is one of my dream use cases to start with. And since you brought up Dictopedia, let me go into my 30 seconds on Dictopedia. And Heiner, I'm particularly interested in your reaction to this, okay? Which is, suppose when we sit down together, Heiner, you sit down, I sit down, we're at a cafe or a restaurant, right? You put your phone down face up, I put my phone down face up. And let's suppose that we've given this app the permission to listen to us as we speak, okay? So in Doug's use case, when the word poverty comes up, okay? All of a sudden now in my list of 400 terms that I've collected, poverty comes up. And in your list of 800 or 1200 words that you've collected, the definition for poverty comes up, okay? So forget for the moment that yours is German and mine is English, okay? But you and I can both read it. So you and I can both read my definition and your definition. And suppose my entry for poverty has 3 entries. One that I got from Doug, one that I got from me, one that I got from Tammy. And I haven't reconciled them all yet. And so now we've got 4 or 5 different definitions of poverty. And if we both see, hey, they're pretty much the same, fine, okay? We just continue with the conversation. If we both see, wow, poverty to Heiner means, you know, 50,000 Deutschmarks per year. Poverty to me means that children can't eat. Now we have a disconnect, okay? And if we both can see that, then that's a way to potentially either put a topic on the backlog for discussion or divert it right away. So that is one of my dream use cases for this Dictopedia thing that I've been talking about, okay? I'm not expecting this thing to be super smart in disambiguation. I'm just saying it gives us the opportunity to disambiguate ourselves to start with. Over. You're muted, Heiner.
I think first we have to look into what is the specialist and the generalist. And I believe through cognitive evolution, we have to really learn to see with 2 eyes, see the micro and the macro at the same time and negotiate about it. Only through this conversation, through this dialogue, we realized we have different controlled vocabularies. And you see, I was deep in that. We looked into a World Press Center with the World Bank in early 90s at the edge when the internet came. And the UN, for example, having many languages, they have certain terms which are not to be used. They are bad. So we as civil society did campaigns over 2-3 years. The word crisis was not allowed to be used by the translators because crisis meant in different cultures something totally different. It had maybe some potential aspect. And the issue is, how much is this a crisis for you and me? Is it about $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever your example was in the moment? This is actually where my work is, trying to find a bridge in other cultural spheres. And this was a mandate of data harmonization. I was involved in the 80s to do metadata, but it's always without context. So it really matters when you talk about values, Sam. Can we talk about love, feelings, fear? How much is your fear and how much is mine fear? and maybe my fear is more important than yours because I'm German or whatever bullshit. So the issue, and that was a Chinese I met in Washington. He created a Pan-Essex society to look with Bhutanese not only into the happiness, but also in the suffering involved. How much in governance and policy we inflict suffering by doing this and that issue. So it's a Pan-Essex society. Ralph Seo is unfortunately dead, but I'm still, I think, in the speakers board, it is very important that he said this dukkha and sukha, that say in Pali, the amount of happiness and the amount of suffering is very diverging. And if you have a Buddhist monk, then he will tell you a little bit more about compassion than a businessman across the street. So Ralph Seo developed the International Society of Pan-Essex to really have a common idea of what suffering is. I mean, over generations, across cultures. And he developed a dukkha scale where one day a molar, deep toothache, everybody experiences this suffering the same, is part of one dukkha. And so he developed a dukkha scale with the friends of Popper and other crazy people 60 years ago. And I found it of interest because all this is so vague, because my happiness is not your happiness, Kayla or Keith. You see? It's all in the air.
I want to just go back to something. You said the word crisis was sort of banned. What was the South American euphemism they came up to replace it with?
We campaigned, we addressed every delegate from all nations in the General Assembly. And now the standard, after the civil society said, we must be allowed to say crisis. And now it is allowed to be used, but contextualized. You have to say which crisis is in which context.
I gotcha. So yeah, the concept of banning the use of the word because different people have different definitions is sort of like Trump saying, well, if you test more, you have more cases. and the suggestion was, if I don't test as much, I won't have as many cases.
It's
just a completely perverse, like, logical twist of insanity. But I want to come back, and where you left off is where I went, which is the person who came up with the unhappiness or pain scale, right? Now, I took a look at Bhutan. I studied where they got their whole unhappiness thing out of a conference that was in Paris, I believe. That was where they developed the index, and they sort of hardened up and quantified a framework for this idea of a national happiness index, right? And but the interesting thing was that they didn't do that until after they committed a national genocide against anybody who wasn't Buddhist and threw them out or killed them, right? They did this bloody, horrendous purge of the whole country so that it was homogenized around Buddhism. And then they brought in this happiness index. And I'm like, what about those folks that you killed and you exiled, you threw out of the country, you know, like within the last decade? Like, what about those people? What about their right to happiness and whatever? And then I drilled down and did a little more digging and found out that, lo and behold, the aspirational intention of the happiness index was terrific. There was supposed to be an audit index of this every couple of years. And after the first round or two, it's sort of petered out. Like the political powers that be within Bhutan, you know, the old guard weren't so thrilled with the idea of this happiness thing.
The trending wasn't the good narrative.
Huge waste of time. Yeah, it's like, you know, why are we worried about this when we're going to do what we're going to do anyway? And and so it's again substituting the experiential frame and meaning and intention, right? The irony of a construct that says the word crisis has different meanings, and it's what may be a crisis for you isn't a crisis for me, flies completely in the face of the underlying reality and truth. I'm going to qualify this subjectively for me, which is we're all frickin' connected. And if somebody is currently starving to death somewhere in the world, that's part of me that's starving somewhere in the world. Even though I just had a delicious mashup leftover breakfast from, you know, a great dinner 2 nights ago. And, but it doesn't mean that I'm not responsible and charged for carrying awareness and consciousness of the tens of millions of people that are starving to death right now, this minute. And so getting back to cases of empathy and connection and the experiential frame, the minute you start going there, a lot of the preoccupation with frameworks and with structures and with vocabularies and rules and ISOs and all of that stuff start to lose a lot of their pull. It doesn't mean they're not meaningful, valuable. It doesn't mean there's not contribution for them existing, but are they the subject of the sentence or the object? Are they the primary point, or are they an ancillary facilitation aid to the real meat of it? Like ISO standards and enabling a manufacturer in Asia to know what complementary B2B user of what they manufacture in Germany needs it to meet in terms of requirements. It's the underlying relationships, interactions, exchanges that are the point. And the current system, like, muddies that water, it seems to me, like gets confused about that. What's the major premise? What's the minor premise? What's the point and purpose?
So can I give you another example of that, Doug?
Yeah.
This is why I don't understand this whole $15 an hour business. You know, it's a point in time solution for maybe a place in the world, but you know, who are we to say in all different economies and all different product categories and all different kinds of home considerations that $15 an hour is sufficient? You know, it seems so inadequate because, you know, to communicate what's necessary for people to eat properly, to be clothed, to be fed, to be warm, is more than just 3 words. However, you can use 3 words to say $15 an hour, you know? And so people get that, but they don't understand what the purpose of that is. And in California, it may be 22, you know? And in China, it might be 5, you know? And it's a stupid thing to have an arbitrary number and lose sight of why that number is even being discussed and what happens when conditions change, right? What happens if a disease hits the world? You know, what happens if climate change really happens? What happens if an earthquake destroys your home? All of a sudden that $15, you know, I'm getting isn't going to replace my home. So this whole idea of using these numbers to remove ourselves from the conversation of how do we keep ourselves all healthy and connected and warm and fed and etc. is a shortcut. But people don't recognize that it's a shortcut. And so when conditions change, they don't go back and re-examine. So I agree with you on that premise. And that's why I think this whole $15 an hour, well, it's good, politics. It's shoving under the carpet yet again the real conversation. Over.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but you and I agree.
Wait a minute, I'm falling on the floor again.
On something. You and I agree on what you just said 100%. Isn't that awesome?
Wait a minute, that's twice in 2 days I've fallen on the floor due to some agreement. At some point, it's going to start hurting.
So how do we bring it back to focus? How do we catalytically infect a transformation, a consciousness awareness transformation of people back to what the real underlying it is, what matters, what's important here? Jazz, you raised your hand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
The phrase we use in the UK is a thing called a living wage, which is not just a monetary figure, but it's on the requirements, daily, weekly requirements that are taken into consideration. These are just the basics, and I personally am of the opinion that other things should be added into that consideration, since we put monetary value on education as well. So this has to be broadened sooner or later as to what we mean, how far we should broaden that term to include up to and including education. So when we say a living wage, you include in that things like food, electricity, heating, whatever else you include in there, amenities like television, broadband, then education up to the age of 16 is already included because that's the taxpayer pays for that. What about higher education? Would that be brought into it? Clothing, to what standard should the clothing be considered into it? All this has to be considered to come to some sort of a figure or some sort of something, a social system where we all have a decent standard of living, regardless of whether we work or we don't work.
So my thing is, let's start by splitting generative contribution, which may not be about a wage. It's about contributing something, anything of value to the collective, to the commons, to the greater good, right? What about separating that and the system and values and mechanism to maximize every human being's possibility and opportunity to do so, to contribute, from needs? Like, let's start by eliminating the quid pro quo. You know, I do an hour worth of legal for you and I get paid $450. Like, that is at the root, to my mind, of the problem, right? That the truth of the matter is that
I'm about to agree with you again, Doug.
I'm interested in providing my value to anyone and everyone that I can, in whatever form or shape they might find my help or contribution of value, with all the various hat skills and things that I've accumulated and know at this stage of the game of my life. And I don't want to think about that as connected to my needs. It really, one has nothing to do with the other.
Right.
And the needs part of this world, when you disconnect from that, gets a lot more basic and fundamental, which is, how do you level up so that every man, woman, and child on this planet, at least minimally, has what it takes to survive, which is food, water, and depending upon climate, shelter or clothing, right? Those are the only things that we need as a species to survive. That's the base level. Everything else is a discretionary add-in and technically a luxury. And I think there are probably 8 billion people plus for whom just those three things on a daily, regular basis existing would be a huge improvement.
Yeah, it's about a couple of billion people who need the basics you mentioned, and that is just the daily survival rate, and that's about a couple of dollars a day currently. And that is extremely low. They have absolutely nothing. They cannot engage. And for them, for somebody who is, say, argument's sake, 15 years old and existing on $2 a day, they cannot engage in anything other than just thinking about their stomach on a daily basis, and that's about it. Whatever they earn in one day, they eat in that day. And most of them don't even have any shelter.
That is
extremely low.
I mean, the thing that separates us as a species and also has gotten us in the shithole situation, dystopic situation we're in, the thing that separates us is the rest of the living world only is focused on what they need to survive in terms of those minimums. Animals don't need excess. They don't conceive of hoarding. They don't conceive of accumulating. We're the only species that does that. Now, there are animals that have developed strategies for off-season food supply or equivalent, right? Or fattening up during the summer to, hibernate during the winter, all that stuff, but very much biologically rooted, right, in their being. Not accumulating for the sake of accumulating is an abstracted, disassociated thing from needs. We lost that connection. We lost it. And I think we need to get back to that. And plus the value that I care that somebody else is starving, and I don't want them starving. I want them taken care of. Yes, Ian.
I do think this idea, which for now I'm going to refer to as economies of scale, again, is one of these technologies that can be used as a double-edged sword. It allows us to build, grains silos. It also allows us to build bigger machines that any individual one of us could actually build, okay? But as you say, used incorrectly, it can also be used to hoard. Basically remove from the benefit of the rest of society and allow just one person to say, okay, I'm going to take care of myself and my family and my progeny. All the rest of you guys can go F yourselves, okay? That's the thing that is the double-edged, the other side of the sword. So I think regardless of whether we're animals or not, we're human because we have that capacity. We can recognize and actually plan for this economy of scale. So it's a skill that can be used differently. And what we're talking about is how can we do it with retention of that social connection, that compassion, that care for others, the ecology, other species, etc. And it's that psychopathic or sociopathic element that I think we want to really understand, minimize, ameliorate, and eradicate potentially. Over.
I have a little something to add in there, Doug. If we didn't have access capacity, if we didn't hoard as a being, we wouldn't have progress at the rate that we have had in the past 20, 30,000 years or so. From going from a hunter-gatherer society to an agrarian society, we were able to hoard food, which meant we had people who were free of labor, and they could sit and think and plan and do writing. And so we owe our existence, present-day existence, to those ancestors, and it has led to great achievements. No doubt you've seen the launch last week, and that is all due to that particular capital being available. I am of an opinion, rightly or wrongly, that we should set the bar higher for everybody. not just the basic needs, but some of the wants as well. I'm going to include myself in that lot, in that I'm thinking about people who want to go down the spiral rather than up the spiral, who want to have less, live with much less, and do much more meditation and make that available to others. That's what churches and religions are about, that they make people make donations, and then the teachers don't have to worry about their daily needs because they're taken care of. And then they just provide the wherewithal to take students, disciples on, so they can do the same. That particular way of life is abhorrent to the capitalist system, who want everybody to be producing something, except themselves, of course. So there has to be an allowance where everybody can be doing all the things that they want to be doing and still be part of society, of that culture, without somebody casting aspersions that they're useless. No, we're not. We're all part and parcel of the same journey, but at different stages of that journey. If you don't understand somebody else's journey, you only have to ask, and probably be too pleased to bore you to death, but that's another story. I'm complete.
Gandhi is often cited for having said, there's enough for everybody's needs, but not for everybody's greeds or similar. And I think this is actually what it is about, and it is to be contextualized. That's why we started with Betriebs- und Volkswirtschaft. If we don't give the standard what it means to get a good quality meal, then it is much easier to live on Hawaii or on a Polynesian island than live in Alaska. You need much, much more to survive. That's why I feel all this number counting, this economics of scales, like Sam pointed out, that is pain. Because if you look into E.F. Schumacher and Small is Beautiful, then you see that you cannot just extrapolate all the time. But I don't anyway understand what is economies of scales. Maybe Tüss and Sam can explain me economy of scale, because scale, Husserl said, is more than size. It has proportions and consequences, and these need to be contextualized.
Thank you.
Anyone has read E.F. Schumacher and Leopold Kohr and Small is Beautiful? They live close to Salzburg here, between Austria and Germany.
Not as much as you, Heiner, but small amounts.
I just want to highlight it for people who didn't look at it yet. It is, I think, very important to understand what these thinkers had in mind.
Yes, yes.
I think I've read Small is Beautiful, but I thought it was about Burma. And then Burma is now a great problem with the Rohingya and so on. So he idealized Burma in Small is Beautiful, Mr. Schumacher. So I skipped all the contents of the book out of my mind.
We're in a really unique moment in time, I believe, an opportunity moment in time. Bottom up, I think there is an emerging popular awakening consciousness on a fundamental level of what people are no longer willing to accept. I think the COVID grinding of the world to a halt and everybody looking around and going, I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still surviving, and the people that were in suffering and were not are still not. But the basic status quo, circumstantial status quo for almost everybody, at least up to this point, they've been able to sustain, maintain, or have received help to do so.
Mm.
And the world hasn't ended or come to collapse. And notwithstanding attempts to make it look like it is. Like the United States thing, you know, I had some friends in Israel who were like, are you guys safe with all the rioting? And I went back and I said, actually, it's not a lot of rioting. There's a huge amount of protest and demonstration. There actually isn't that much rioting. It's a very small, coordinated minority attempting to make it all look like it's a riot and the end of the US and it's burning to the ground. And it just happens not to be true. The vast bulk of these mass protests and the vast bulk of the participants are peaceful, are coming from a place of being contributive, constructive in their demonstration to effect change.
Absolutely.
So we had, miraculously yesterday, the head of the NFL, who is the singularly most powerful sports business guy, at least in the US as it relates to American football, go on TV and acknowledge sort of the concepts of white privilege and the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement and the imperative to stop the wanton killing by police of Black men, right? And in support of the demonstrations. Now, not once in this speech did he mention the one guy who was the first in the world to register his voice by kneeling during the national anthem, a quarterback named Colin Kaepernick, who deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He was the only one, and he got roasted alive. He got blackballed by the whole NFL. And now this asshole gets up. It's got to be, I don't know how long ago it was, Kayla. Do you know? It must have been at least a year and a half, 2 years ago, Colin Kaepernick first kneeled. He's been blackballed for at least 2 years, maybe even longer.
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago.
Yeah. And this guy was the head of the team owners organization and regulation agency for the NFL, who sanctioned him being blackballed and them all being accused of being unpatriotic for kneeling during the national anthem. Well, times have changed. And now the whole world is kneeling in the face of nationalist crap to say enough is enough. It's global. The Me Too movement represented the beginning of the end of the patriarchy in certain respects, a leveling up of consciousness around it not being okay for men to subordinate and discriminate and disrespect women as co-equal partners in rights, basic human and civil rights. So these are massive up-leveling of consciousness awareness going on. And there's a lot of people at the shadow line of these transformational movements that are learning in real time as we go. And I think that's a trend, contextually, that's a trend line that's not going backwards, that's not going to revert. We're not going back to what was. It's hard to know what we're going toward, but it can't return to what was. And men can't get away with what they took for granted and did to women. And police officers can't go about their business with impunity, killing people or violating people's civil rights without an awareness in the moment that it's not okay. So that's happening. I mean, I think that's real. That's like something that started, that's a process that can't stop. The question is, how do we add things to the list? How do we increase the momentum and the scope, Heiner, to your horizontal dimension of things? How do we add things to that list that are no longer okay? That's what I'm blocked about. How to do that.
There are some things which are beyond the control of the bottom-up movement. Just as you say, you want to be able to add to that list. At the other end, the top end, where the money resides, they have to have a list where they have to remove items from that list. They are sitting there. I can imagine people holding meetings, and they have these programs like Rio Tinto, for example. They've got millions and millions of, probably billions of dollars that they acquired in funding to carry out the projects that they're going to be doing in the next few years. How are they going to cut back? Same goes for the oligarchy. The reason we haven't come out of oligarchy, even after the last 30 odd years of protesting against it, is because vast amounts of money are exchanging hands and projects are in progress. You've only got to look at the Middle East, the buildings that they're putting up so that when they do run out of oil, they've got something to fall back on. So there are the projects that are ongoing for the future to hold everybody at some sort of a decent level of livelihood. They need looking at and how they can be changed without too much disruption. I can't see for the life of me somebody like Bezos saying, well, yeah, I'm going to start closing my warehouses down one by one, because they're not necessary. I think the amount of money he's made in the last 8 weeks, he's looking to open up some more, increasing it. So I'm stuttering because I'm trying to speak as fast as I'm thinking, which is not possible, obviously. So we really have to have a big conference about this. And the Bilderberg generation, they've got to have their meetings and decide which direction we have to go in. And we have to decide how we can persuade them. Can we get some of us into that building? Can we raise enough money to send somebody over there in a private jet and make our points? I don't know, but it's worth considering. I'm complete.
So I'll share at least my orientation to that. As somebody, who really doesn't have two nickels to rub together and is sitting in Southwest Michigan in the middle of MAGA territory. But right now, this minute, at the present, I am involved with 2 active projects with nexuses to 2 major global multinational industrial companies, Siemens and ABB. And I have my sights set on 2 others. One is aeronautics and aviation and defense industries company called Thales, and a fourth is a pharmaceutical company. And I'm working with the transformation change agents in those companies who are charged with responsibility for transformation improvement of them, who are also all miserably unhappy and frustrated after, in many cases, a decade or two of attempting to do that. But they exist, and I'm circling them up, and I'm suggesting to them to transcend their despair and frustration into action and galvanize themselves as internal constituencies to challenge and take advantage of the moment we're in, because their bosses are terrible. They just had their world grind to a halt. Whole divisions shut down overnight with no customers and no business to do. And they're crapping their pants every night. What am I going to do, and how am I going to survive this? And do I have a business coming out the back end? And so that means they're in fear, if not terror. And if they're in fear and terror, they're in feeling. And if they're in feeling, they're open to learn. They're actually vulnerable to the tender ministrations of the transformation change agents that I'm agitating with. So again, it's the same model, bottom up, infect the organization with hope, with belief, with values, with action in service to catalyzing a raising of consciousness and awareness. Right? And I think I got a good shot. I think I got a good shot. And if one of these behemoths is materially shifted off its current course, then the keys to the kingdom are ours, because we can shift them all. And if they shift, the world changes very powerfully and quickly in many ways, if they get aligned, values aligned, to not be extracting and destroying our planet, but contributing to its regenerative survival. Yeah, Tis.
I didn't listen well enough, sorry, at the beginning, but you were talking about people that were, say, in problems, more or less, shutting down, because of the shutdown, losing their, then I didn't know which kind, so which industries, so which people you meant. Then you started to speak about people that could influence this. So I want to have the whole story repeated in a summary if possible, but especially the start.
Well, basically, these really big multinational conglomerates, industrialists, are in certain respects, they've been the Darth Vaders of the world. They've been the extractionist, large-scale global rapists, exploiters of our planet, of its people, of everything in service to profit. I see them as, if transformed, if moved internally to shift and adjust their values, I see them as capable of switching from being that to being the harbingers of a transformed world. They can clean up their act and stop extracting and damaging and shift focus and innovation and resources to the opposite on a dime, and have the fastest, most far-reaching scale and effect of transformation and change in service to the good of any entities on our planet, transcendent of governments, transcendent of anybody else.
I tend to agree with you on that. It just takes one brave person somewhere to start and make a move.
Just to stir the soup.
Absolutely.
All I'm looking to do, Fabian and I in the Values Foundation.
You may well be that catalyst that does that. I don't know. I hope so.
I'm doing my best. I got one life. I got a limited window of time. I got no resources, but my ability to think and to speak and to influence and
You know the
affect.
phrase "oy vey." Do you know what
Yes.
oy?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
hope so.
so I believe it's possible. I believe the means exist in every single one of us to change the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
And I don't know who's going to be, who's going to catalyze what. But, Colin Kaepernick, 2 years before it became the pop thing to do. So the head of the NFL all of a sudden is on TV announcing he's down with Black Lives Matter, right? But 2 years ago, he was one guy in a sport kneeling during,
4 years ago, that was.
I think, was it that long or was it two?
I'll
It's
put it
4
in the
years.
chat. I just looked it up
It's
on.
4 years ago. So 4 years ago, he was one voice, one man taking one action.
And now it's a movement.
And he sacrificed his career, his life. He got blackballed. He got slaughtered for it. But he held his line and he influenced other players to do the same.
Well, the thing
And now we have in these demonstrations, if you don't pay attention to the rioting meme that they've been trying to promote, you have heads of police departments in major cities taking a knee with protesters
well, they've been
as a
doing that since
symbol.
early last week. And the thing that's really surprised me, and it's quite pleasing to see, is that the CIA, the NSA, the security agencies, and in particular, I listened to the meeting between Trump and the governors. Some of those governors were rebellious,
Oh
which is,
yeah.
extremely heartening that we are moving in the right direction, and Trump is completely in the wrong. So I'm cautiously optimistic here that this may happen this time round. We shall see. Or we will have to become reluctant heroes, martyrs even. After you, of course, Doug, you're senior.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could always ask Kayla.
Ask away.
Would you like to be one of the people who goes up to your local governor and puts our point of view across to him, make an appointment and give him a little piece of our mind?
I would love to.
Good idea. Shall we start a petition on your behalf?
Welcome, Josh.
Hello, Josh. Hello, Colin.
Sunday. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Josh, it's good to see you, but I have to leave because we are eating upstairs. I have been posting into the chat room 2 very personal messages from Mila and Teal. Maybe you like them, and we can discuss them next Sunday, because they've been really moving me a lot emotionally, and also what is wise and what is political.
Oh, thank you, Heiner. I will try to find that. Is that in the GCC chat room?
Yeah. I can see them
Okay.
now. They're right at the bottom of the chart.
I'll
So,
take a look. I haven't opened my computer yet. Just woke up.
so from the statement Heiner's just made, I might assume that wisdom and politics don't go together. Or am I making the wrong assumption?
Just wonder, when are you running for office? Stop acting like you're not thinking about it.
I was thinking I'll get my teeth fixed first before I start doing the photo opportunities. That might be an idea.
Yeah, I don't think you need to. That's probably what's going to set you aside as the different candidate. You could just use that as your benefit.
Okay,
So
I'll give it
remember,
some thought.
yeah. Otherwise, you'll just be a average Sikh, but then you'll be that Sikh with you can use it. You have to spin whatever you have. You just spin it. That's what politics is now. It's not about wisdom. It has nothing to do with wisdom at all.
I have to weigh humility against something else. You know, compassion is a great thing too. Compassion goes with humility. But if I start making movements that are for the benefit of others, you know, the first thing that comes to somebody else's mind is that he's becoming egotistical. And that's not the first time that's been leveled at me. And this is by people who are way ahead of me already. And they think I'm competition, and I'm not the competition. I just want to help people. So there's this thing to be weighed, but I am of the opinion now that the question I ask myself is, have I waited long enough? Is that now, can I attack them and say, you've had your turn and you haven't done anything in the last 20 years. You have to give somebody else a chance. So,
And you can do it. I say do it. If you like, I just talked to a friend of mine not into running for Congress because I don't think he's the right person to do that. But I think you would be great in politics.
it's
Some
not a
people have
matter
it,
of
some people
running
don't.
for, it's not a matter of running for Congress. If I were to run for whatever office, even if it's the local one, it's a limited amount. But if I were to take a class of people and then put them in a position where they can go forward, so a 25, 30-year-old has another 30 years at least, whereas I've only got another 10, 15 years. So it would be pertinent and prudent to train others, be a mentor.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? You might have 20, 30 years. You might not even be in your body. You might be uploaded to the computer, still going. After your body gives way, you might still be going uploaded to the computer with all these GCC talks you've been doing. Someone might say, oh, by the way, we're going to take everything you've ever said and upload it to the computer. And your robot, that sexy Barbie doll lady that represents Jaswinder Singh, might be the actual thing that runs, but it's really your ideas and your thoughts and your heart and your beliefs and your beautifulness. That's what comes out. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Nobody knows. It's not.
When somebody dies and words, his words or her words or their words become the living word, as it were, so they're recorded there for posterity, there's something missing from that. It's something not quite, you know, it's much better for a person to stand up on stage and become interactive rather than just say, this is it, you should do this, and everything will be fine. There's two different scenarios there. I quite agree the living word is quite a powerful thing, but not as powerful as a living person speaking those words.
What if you get reincarnated and you're a living person and then you're psychically controlling your avatar in the future? Aha, you didn't think of that, see?
Am I planning my future life already? That's a question. Did I ask for this birth? Yes, I did. How do I know? So it's different scenarios. Am I doing enough already? And am I planning my future life already? If that's what I'm doing, then all is well. But if I waver, then it won't be well.
I like Tisa's post for you, Jazz. The Lord High Chancellor. I think that position has you written all over it.
The word chancellor is connected with money, and I've for the last God knows how many years, I've tried to live as humbly as possible, with as little as possible. I'm giving away things that I have that others can use much better than I need. I don't need them anymore. So the office of chancellor would be much wasted on me, I think. But I'll give it some consideration. Thank you. Ah.
Is Colin here in the meeting, or I thought I heard
I
you say
don't
hello
I
to
don't know.
Colin.
Haven't heard his voice. I mean, his avatar is here.
Ah, I see him. Hello,
The
Colin.
winged phoenix of something.
Some asked a question in the chat that what is being discussed, that Joscha proposed Jos Winder to run for office in USA. So that was discussed.
Well,
So then I
I didn't say
proposed the
USA.
position in England.
Yeah, I mean, run for office wherever you want. I didn't say USA. I wouldn't recommend this country to any of my friends.
I heard Congress, so that implied USA seems.
Oh, I said a friend of mine, not Joss Winder, a friend of mine named Tully, who was working really hard on the Andrew Yang campaign, very closely with Andrew Yang, and he decided he was going to walk 8 miles every day in the cold with a flag in the middle of winter in Iowa for Andrew Yang. So I respected that, and that's what drew me to him as a friend. But regarding him running for office, he's one of those really strong-willed, strong people, and they don't usually do well in politics at his age. He's 28 years old. So I didn't think that was the time for him personally. That's just my own opinion, but I have another friend that's running for Congress against Nancy Pelosi, and he's just starting to pick up his stride and get a real movement behind him. And I think he is perfect for politics because he's been a constitutional lawyer for 20 years. So he's been steeped in it for 20 years and has a good, he could actually survive in Congress. He's been, he's made for it. I don't know. Some people I think are made for it. I'm not made for politics because I would get thrown out in a rail in 2 seconds.
My understanding is
I
Obama
think
also was a constitutional scholar, but I saw a questionable understanding of that in some of his actions, though.
Yeah, check out, if you can, Sam, check out Shahid Buttar. He's a really interesting guy, and he's making some waves right now. He ran last election cycle, and I think he got 12% of the vote. And so he's running again this election cycle, and he's looking to get, he's upwards at 20 to 30% of the vote right now.
This
So
is the
he's got
one
a chance.
against Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah. He's a rapper, DJ, an activist, and now a presumptive congressman.
Yeah, I don't understand how Nancy has been even serving the country, She didn't go after the impeachment with zeal. She delayed way long. She's capitulating to the Democrats. I think it's just representing this one-party politics with two facades, yet again.
Now you're sounding like Shahid Buttar. That's exactly what he's explaining to the public.
Sounding like millions of Americans who are seeing through the crap.
Yep. It's an interesting time. Things are switching and everything's changing. And I feel like we only got about 10 years before we don't even recognize our very existence.
I think this year is it. If this election goes badly, the U.S. is no longer a viable country. It's questionable whether it's viable now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, sorry, I had to leave to go deal with the pups and do some dishes. Did Heiner get unblocked with this duel between him and Teese?
I don't know.
I think it was a draw.
Okay, dance off. Or a rap off. Do a rap off.
Or a comedy battle.
I wish I could find more humor in this current state of things, but I think I'm losing my sense of humor.
That's not good, Sam.
Hmm.
I don't think you can. You got a good sense of humor.
I'm still falling off my chair every time Doug agrees with me.
Hey, listen, if that can happen, anything can happen.
That's right. That's why you're here, right, Doug? You're still here. I'm still
Absolutely.
here because we're still leaning in here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What else are we here to unblock? I just thought I'd drop back in again.
Maybe one remark regarding Obama. I was with a friend with Americans abroad, all over Europe and elsewhere, and I think you don't understand Obama right when you say he's a constitutional lawyer. He's a community organizer, and again a community organizer. And then he is a lawyer, and maybe only through his wife.
Well, supposedly he has the degree from an Ivy League school.
Well, he's also a smooth mother. Wait, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I heard something interesting from Andrew Yang in an old talk with Eric Weinstein. He was saying that a president is policies and the populace and all these things we think about politics, but it's also how the person makes you feel. And I thought that was very poignant and wise.
I think he's quoting Maya Angelou there, right?
He might be. He does that a lot. He steals from everybody, all the people that he admires and respects, like Martin Luther King is where he stole his UBI idea from. So I think that's what a good politician is someone who takes ideas from many, many places, bundles it into their personality, makes sure it really meshes good with who they are. And then if that energy of how they come across is liked and admired and respected, then they're popular. And that's the way I understand politics.
And they have to be male and tall.
No.
Okay, tall.
Stacey Abrams isn't male and tall.
I don't think she's been picked yet, has she?
She works in our political system. You mean to be president, you have to be male and tall? Is that what you meant? I just was saying any political office.
Yeah, I mean, historically, hasn't the taller candidate always won?
In politics? In
the
president of the United States, you mean?
Yeah. Up until a few years ago, I knew that was true.
I was going to say FDR was in a wheelchair. I don't know how tall he was in the wheelchair. I don't think Teddy Roosevelt was that. How tall was Teddy Roosevelt? I have no idea. We've had quite a few short presidents. I think Adolf Hitler was a pretty small person.
I don't think he ran for president of the United States, though.
Yeah, but he ran for president of the world.
No, he had an army behind that campaign.
Yeah, but who was the guy running against him before he seized his power?
Lost in history, right? Who was it?
I don't know. He was probably taller than him, though. I have a feeling Sam's looking that up on the computer now. No?
No, I'm actually trying to find somebody I need to respond to. Okay, sorry. Maybe that means that I'm not 100% here.
I just popped into the conversation, but I don't see any blocks. Did you guys already unblock everything? What
Well,
happened?
we unblocked Heiner, we unblocked Teese, you know. Doug seems to be unblocked, you know, he's meditating. Just Winter's always unblocked.
Awesome. I just got unblocked. The minute I opened my eyes this morning, I thought I wasn't sure if I would be here when I woke up because there was a giant fire right next to where I live. And right before the sun went down, the winds picked up to 60-mile-per-hour gusts. So if there was any embers, I thought maybe it might blow through the night and I might wake up in the middle of a fire. So I was
You wake up warm and
happy to-
toasty.
Yeah, I'm just happy that there's still things not on fire.
Josh, how is the water situation where you live?
The water?
The water. Do you have water for extinguishing fires or to drink?
Well, the reason there's a big pond in front of where I am, and that was made specifically for fire, as well as other things. But yeah, we do have a giant reservoir that's sitting there just in case of fire, and we broke out the pump yesterday, where we would have to pump it like a fireman with giant fire hoses. So that's the situation. Spray down the buildings and the structures.
Well, that'll definitely take use of those batteries you were talking about yesterday.
Well, yeah, it's a gasoline engine. The batteries aren't strong enough. But there's also a very large collection of huge koi fish that are in that pond. So they wouldn't be too happy about that if that happened.
I think Doug's asleep.
No, I'm not. I'm just processing.
Well, Kayla, how many lays have you made already?
I don't count a lot. They,
Nice, beautiful.
the one good thing about lei making is they say that, you know, when you make a lei, a lot of people like to listen to music, people like to meditate. It's a form of meditation. Whatever thoughts that you have inside your heart will go in the lei. So, unbeknownst to you guys, I was making a lei yesterday. And it was a good one. I'm ahead of schedule.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't seem to be very often that we hit these moments where we've got nothing to unblock.
They're few and far between.
We should be in flow then if we got nothing to unblock.
I concur with your assessment.
My dogs are in flow. Man, are they thriving. If anybody wants to take the challenge, come on over here and play ping pong with Ronnie. She's been getting quite good.
For a second, I forgot Ronnie that's your daughter, right?
Yes, she's just turned 17 on Monday.
Is that a
Okay, 'cause if
concession
that's
that
when
she,
you were-
is that a concession that
I was
she's
just
now
gonna-
beating you?
No, she's not doing that. But, you know, the day before, her sister did drive the hour and a half to come and, you know, physically distant, but drop off some birthday presents for her. And I challenged her to play Ronnie in ping pong. And I said, if she won, I would donate $100 to her favorite charity. And she lost. So Ronnie is predictably good so far.
Well, you must be proud, Sam.
I'm sorry. My pride is showing.
It's good. No, it's beautiful. I thought for a second you said Ronnie, but I forgot it was your daughter and you're petting your dog. So I thought if you taught your dog how to play ping pong, I'm coming over there. I gotta see that.
Kayla, I was hoping to get the link to the live event you're attending this afternoon or in a few hours. I
Yeah.
thought we are all joining you.
Yes, I'll post it when I figure it out.
Yes, do that.
Yeah, I'll share it, post it, all of that good stuff.
Are you doing a solo or with a group?
Yeah, just me.
Whoa, okay.
And I'm playing music. Ah! You guys didn't know that too? Yes.
Let's see. How many people are in a typical band? I know the drums. There's a ukulele or a guitar. And what else is typically in one of those troops?
So if you're looking for a full Polynesian review, there's usually 1 or 2 people that can do multiple things. There's usually to'ere for the Tahitian. There is the Tahitian uke, the Hawaiian uke, a singer. You got the pahu drum. You know, 1 or 2 people can do that. You know, it's not required that everybody learns, but when you have time on the islands, it's just what you do. But nowadays, when you want to talk about Tahitian, oh gosh, there's dozens now. And one of my Polynesian friends, it was really interesting, his take on that. He said, you know, I think Tahitians are just getting lazy now, and they just want to play one to'ere. And but before it used to be just one person playing all of the music. Hope that answers your question.
Well, too bad there aren't the arrangements for violin. If you ever need a violin, I could actually come join you.
We did a number to a violin. We did. It was a Tahitian number. It was beautiful. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Just
Yeah, if you need a beatboxer, I'll throw my hat in the ring. A vocal percussionist.
How is it over there, Josh? I'm thinking of bringing my kids there in a couple of weeks, like probably to Rankin again.
Oh, well, you got to come up and visit.
Well, yeah, I was looking at your site. I was actually going to do a solo trip and just hang out in nature, unblock myself, unblock everything.
Let me know.
Okay, I will. Get ready.
All right. And bring a ukulele and I will beatbox.
Cullen, what's going on with you? We haven't heard your voice. And can you turn on your video, or are you?
Yeah, I could. But I'm not going to. Not much to see. I didn't shave. Just looking out the window. We had a pretty serious thunderstorm a couple days ago, and a lot of people lost power. So it's just chilly. It was really hot, but now it's kind of chilly. Listening to the discussions, some interesting topics. I've got my points of view, not so simple, but I thought I would just keep them to myself, as allow the flow. It's kind of a quiet day. But yeah, I was thinking about that Colin Kaepernick thing and the NFL commissioner or whatever, not mentioning his name. And also, I'm a bit cynical, I guess, in thinking that he did that on his own volition. I think it's business that forces businesses to look, it's money, popularity. So when everybody's doing it, I guess I'll do it too. And that's kind of the way government is. Government's a follower as well.
Well, his driver may also have been the fact that most of the teams that he is the god of are black.
Well,
Yeah,
that was
no,
always
yeah.
true. That was true 5-6 years ago. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's being forced into it because it's populist now.
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
It's insincere, but at least it's better he's doing it than not doing it.
Well, they gave the female the vote one time. I don't know. That was like not that long ago.
Wasn't that late 60s?
Yeah, that's like I still shake my head. I can't believe that. And that just shows you how much the generations like to hold on to heritage. Been having a lot of discussions and thoughts about borders and what's the pro and cons of borders. But I think in the end, it comes down to the difference between systems. You can add science into that, although usually money controls what science looks into. So science isn't under its own power. You just create science. Not always. But the difference between the system thinking and ethics and human thinking. And then as Heiner says, with the multiple dimensions, there's in multiple syntaxes, definitions of words, dictopedia. You know, I was thinking that's why if you're going to sit down and have a conversation about a particular topic, you need to have something like a dictopedia. And typically we don't. So that's kind of why I come up with the game of discernment. So you can discern your way through this and build the dictopedia as you go and add to it. So it's feedback loop kind of a game where you would have the dictopedia or something to feed into that. But yeah, it's I guess that's my primary interest here is clear conversation and context, and how do you build upon that and keep the narrative going, which kind of rhymes with the idea of people's rights. Like, how do you keep the memory of what somebody's rights are, and how do you keep that going? Like, how long did it take the women to say, hey, not only can we work, but we can vote? You know, and it's like I think the black, colored people, minorities, whatever, a lot of generations have gone by. In Canada, it's the Native Americans that fit that role more than black people, at least for where I grew up. And I always had a hard time of thinking of us and them, and it's just that divide between what you think is better, what you think is good, and what the system can withstand.
Yep.
On the backs of tradition. So I think open-mindedness is a gift, but it's also a vulnerability, and psychopaths will eat it up for breakfast and make a profit off it. Tell you that, you know, oh, let's all kneel today. Oh, that's a great idea. Did our stocks go up? So I don't know. I'm quite cynical about it, just because I guess the overall understanding for me is that people are a part of nature, and they're not the same thing, and they're very susceptible. I always go back to the brain and how different they are, and I guess how they can be influenced, indoctrinated, and hardened. Add fear and ignorance into that, and I think you got the world we're in. So, you know, I think it's actually a positive thing that science can be heartless, so that it can stand away for a bit. But people who own these heartless tools shouldn't be the final deciders. They should be the ones trying to bring up the facts and the context, or at least one side of it. It's just not balanced because of, I guess, because of markets. I was listening to an Archain podcast, which was really cool. Archain, they're into bringing different flows.
I have a
to the
question to
blockchain.
you guys.
Go ahead, Heiner.
Are we still on air?
We are.
Yeah, so Archain, they were talking about 4 dimensions
Hello?
to a context, and one was the law.
Yes, Leonard, you are there. Sorry.
So the 4 things are the law, the market. The fourth is architecture, or the flow of your space. And the third was you got the market, the law, norms, and your environment. So I think those four things are the pillars of a space that you inhibit in your mind. It's very interesting. So yeah, what are borders and what are they good for? Thank you.
Heiner, you had a question?
Yes, I was just curious. Has anyone joined our session last Sunday? It was 2 hours after our regular sessions.
I think I tried to get on, Heiner, a couple of times, but I was always in the lobby. I was not let in.
You see, that is my question. Zoom, I mentioned earlier, changed the operating system that everybody who did not upgrade. But we are, with a friend of mine in Rio de Janeiro, presently editing the recording, which was done to professional standards. I will send you the links early the week. I was just curious because it was very important for me, and it was the history of what we did in 1990. So you will be briefed even when you couldn't enter. So we had a very cozy small group, even when we had a Zoom for 500 participants. But anyway, that's not feasible if we don't have other methods to include contributions and quality voting.
Yeah, I did want to try, and I don't know which machines I've upgraded. I've got 8 different machines, and depending on where I am, I just sit down and try and join a session. So I wasn't sure which one had been upgraded.
I only have
Probably
6
that one.
systems. You have 8. You are far ahead of me. 2 machines.
Well, most of them are for experimentation, you know.
Life is an experiment.
And the poem, and the dance, and the story. And the tragedy, and the comedy, and the musical.
So if you have the chance to look to the 2 Facebook presentations of Mila and Teal, I think you will be very moved. I was moved for 5 days, and I wasn't sure if Mila wants to have it public, but she did it as a live premiere Facebook or whatever session. It is widely shared. I think about 2,500 people now, and it's very important, and it's speaking so much from the heart, very easy to not weep.
I had a similar experience, Heiner, to what you described. In the first of 3 sessions that I and a colleague are hosting at ABB, and we had about 22 people attend. But because all of these corporations around the world, when Zoom had that security glitch, and basically the whole corporate world, their IT departments swore off Zoom and have persisted in maintaining that position. So all of these huge companies now will go nowhere near Zoom, which I think is, I'm not sure what's motivating that. It almost
It was
looks
good marketing.
It almost looks conspiratorial to me, because Zoom is so far superior to anything they're currently using. So anyway, our in-house advocate at ABB had been routing around looking for a viable alternative and had come up with Blue Jeans as the best surrogate she could find, and it was just horrible. because half the people couldn't straighten out the permissions issues around use of their cameras and their microphones. And in Blue Jeans, if you're not on, in terms of camera on, you're invisible. There's no way of knowing that they're there. Like in Zoom, Kayla right now is represented by her camera being off, but her name is showing. They're invisible. You can't even see that they're there. So, and the significance, the sort of intrinsic power of this medium, the significance of people's picture, people's camera, being able to see them, can't be over stressed, and the loss in connection, resonance, communication, depth of communication without that is really pretty profound. Although we didn't lose anybody, it's not like people went away for lack of that, but it was hard to hold the space and hold the people that were invisible in mind during the session, which is what I worked really hard to do, as if they were visible, even though they weren't.
Yeah, for the record, I've had a handful of attempts at Blue Jeans, and none of them were satisfactory, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not good. And all the others are then way behind them. So, yeah, it's challenging.
I do suspect there was a competitor that did a very good campaign against the Zoom. And the competitor, I think, that seems to have won out is a lot of companies have gone to Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, but Teams sucks. It's really limited.
It's much better than what Microsoft used to have, which is Skype for Business, which was really the worst of the lot by far.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Kayla. Well done.
Thank you guys.
Bravo.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, morning, and then hopefully I'll see you guys online.
Send out the link.
By the way,
Please send out the link. Post the link.
I think I said this at the beginning of the session, but Kayla's agreed to take the barn raising. That's 2 sessions from yesterday. So June 20th, Kayla's going to lead us in a Tanaloa dialogue.
Yeah.
Cool.
That'll be fun.
So where is the link, Kayla?
Oh, I'm not good at this stuff.
No excuses.
Once I get to Long Beach, I'll ask the musicians holding it, and I'll put it on my page, and I'll tag everybody who asked.
So we go.
Can you at least say what time that'll be?
Oh, 1 o'clock.
In how many hours?
Let's see, 3 hours from now. 5 Stunden.
Okay. And it's your Facebook page, or what are you referring to?
Yeah, 3 hours from now.
You are hiding.
All right.
I will not forget that.
All right. Bye.
That on my Facebook.
So Doug, Sunday was quite nice. Last minute, Harry did a lot of cartoons, the Heine narratives. So I have about 20 extra besides the multimodal fish. It's a godfly with many eyes and externally related workplaces of the mind. So we have extensionality expanded. But all this for another time.
Yes.
Meeting you. I think it's soon to the top of the hour. No, I have to go.
Yep, we are a wrap. If anybody would like to throw in a closing 2 cents, you're welcome to. Now is the time. And if not, I'll release you all from the land of GCC to your various places of 3D reality, and you can return to your Sundays. Thank you for being here, co-creating this.